The waiter refills the wine glass. Laughter echoes from the table near the window. A Palestinian diplomat leans back in his chair, relaxed for the first time in months. He doesn't know that the couple two tables over aren't celebrating an anniversary. He doesn't notice the photographer across the street who's been tracking his movements for 6 weeks. And he certainly doesn't realize that the next time he touches his car door handle, he has exactly 11 seconds left to live. Before we dive in, hit subscribe to Mossad Classified. This channel uncovers secret missions, intelligence tactics, and covert history they never meant for the public to see. Paris, June 8, 1992. The City of Lights is about to become a crime scene. Atef Bseiso finishes his espresso. He signals for the check. Tomorrow he has meetings with French intelligence. The week after, he'll fly to Washington. The CIA wants his input on Hamas. They actually listen to him now. After 20 years of being called a terrorist, Western governments finally see him as something else, a diplomat. Maybe even a partner. He stands, shakes hands, kisses cheeks in the French manner he's adopted. His friends watch him leave, smiling. None of them will ever see him alive again. The walk to his car takes 3 minutes. The street is quiet. Luxury hotels line both sides. This is the 16th arrondissement. Expensive. The kind of neighborhood where violence doesn't happen. Bseiso reaches his vehicle, a silver Mercedes parked under a street lamp. He pats his jacket pocket. Keys. He's thinking about tomorrow's meeting, about the intelligence he'll share, about the credibility he's building. 2 men step out from between parked cars. Bseiso notices them. Fair-skinned, athletic builds. They're walking toward him, but Paris is full of people walking. He turns his attention back to his car, slides the key into the lock. 1 man moves behind him. Fast. Professional. Before Bseiso can turn his head, is grabbed. Strong hands pin his arms. His body is pressed against the hood of his Mercedes. He tries to shout, but the pressure on his neck cuts off the sound. The second man steps forward. In his right hand is a Beretta, a .22 caliber pistol. The suppressor makes it nearly silent when he raises it to Bseiso's head. 2 shots, both to the skull, both fatal. Total elapsed time from first contact to death 9 seconds. The killers don't run. Running attracts attention. They walk, purposeful but not frantic, down Rue Verdun, around the corner, into a waiting car that pulls away at normal speed, obeying every traffic law. Bseiso lies against his Mercedes, blood pooling on expensive Parisian cobblestones. His eyes are open. He died so fast his brain never processed what was happening. One moment he was thinking about intelligence briefings. The next moment he was gone. By morning, the world knows. Palestinian diplomat murdered in Paris. Shot execution style outside a luxury hotel. No witnesses, no arrests. Just another body and a message written in blood. But here's what makes this story different from every other Middle Eastern assassination. Atef Bseiso wasn't just killed despite working for peace. He was killed because he was working for peace. Understanding why a man dies requires understanding who he was and what he represented to people who profit from endless war. Bseiso was born in Gaza in 1948, the same year Israel declared independence, the same year Palestinians call the Nakba, the catastrophe. His childhood was refugee camps and military occupation, the daily humiliation of checkpoints, the casual violence of soldiers. He could become a fighter. Most of his friends did, joined militant groups, carried weapons, died young in operations that changed nothing. But Bseiso was different. He was smart, analytical. He recognized that guns might win battles, but only diplomacy could win legitimacy. By his 20s, he joined the PLO's intelligence service, not as a field operative, as an analyst, someone who understood that information was more valuable than explosives. He studied Western intelligence agencies, learned how they thought, what they feared, what they needed, and slowly, carefully, he became something rare in Palestinian politics. Someone the West would actually talk to. The PLO was designated a terrorist organization by most Western nations. Officially, governments couldn't negotiate with them. But intelligence agencies operate in gray zones where official policy doesn't apply. And Bseiso gave them something they desperately needed: information about radical Islamic groups that threatened Western interests. Throughout the late 1980s, he met with CIA officers, shared intelligence on Hamas and Islamic Jihad, warned about attacks being planned, provided names of militants operating in Europe. He wasn't betraying Palestinians. He was positioning them as partners in stability rather than sources of chaos. The strategy was brilliant. Every briefing he gave to American intelligence built credibility for the Palestinian cause. Every warning about extremist attacks proved Palestinians could be valuable allies. Every meeting demonstrated that moderates existed who could work within international frameworks. French intelligence loved him. The Germans consulted him on extremist networks. Even the Israelis received second-hand reports from his briefings through allied services. Bseiso was doing what no amount of armed resistance had accomplished. He was making Palestinians legitimate in the eyes of Western power, but legitimacy threatened people who needed the conflict to continue. Let me tell you about the list. Every intelligence agency has one. Not the official wanted list published for public consumption. The real list, names written in blood. People marked not for arrest, but for elimination. Mossad calls it the red page. Once your name appears there, you're not a suspect awaiting trial. You're already convicted. The only question is when and where the sentence gets carried out. Bseiso's name went on that page in 1972, linked to the Munich Olympics massacre. In September of that year, Palestinian terrorists from Black September took Israeli athletes hostage during the Olympic Games. The standoff ended in slaughter, 11 athletes dead. Watched by a global television audience, Israel launched Operation Wrath of God in response, a systematic campaign to hunt down everyone connected to Munich. Assassinations across Europe and the Middle East, bodies in hotel rooms, car bombs in foreign capitals. The message was clear. Touch Israeli citizens and the reckoning never ends. The evidence linking Bseiso to Munich was circumstantial at best. He had connections to Black September figures. He'd been in Europe around the time of planning, but no smoking gun, no definitive proof. In a court of law, the case would have been weak, but Mossad doesn't operate under rules of evidence. Suspicion was enough. Association was enough. For years, Bseiso lived under this shadow. He traveled carefully, varied his routes, used different hotels. He understood that somewhere in Tel Aviv, analysts tracked his movements and operatives waited for the right moment. But then something remarkable happened. As the 1980s became the 1990s, his name came off the red page. The decision reflected pragmatic calculation more than forgiveness. Israeli intelligence recognized that Bseiso had become useful as a communication channel. Messages passed to him reached PO leadership directly. Information shared with him flowed back to Tel Aviv through intermediaries. He was more valuable alive as an unofficial back channel than dead as a symbolic victim. Bseiso believed this meant safety. He increased his diplomatic activities, met more openly with Western officials. He thought he'd crossed from the world of shadows into legitimate diplomacy. But he'd forgotten the fundamental rule of intelligence work. Trust no one. And never assume you're truly safe. In 1991, Mossad got a new director. Shabtai Shavit brought different priorities, different philosophy. Where his predecessor had seen value in maintaining channels to the PLO, Shavit saw danger in Palestinian legitimization. He looked at Bseiso's growing Western connections and saw not an intelligence asset, but a strategic threat. A Palestinian who could convince Western governments to pressure Israel. Who could build international support for statehood? Who could make the occupation politically untenable through diplomacy rather than violence? And he made a decision that would prove fatal. He put Bseiso's name back on the red page. Quick reminder, if you're still watching, You're exactly the type of person this channel is made for. Subscribe to Mossad Classified for deep intelligence breakdowns, psychological warfare analysis, and the hidden truths behind the world's most feared agency. The operation that followed demonstrates something most people don't understand about intelligence work. The difficulty isn't killing someone. Any amateur with a gun can commit murder. The difficulty is killing someone in a way that accomplishes strategic objectives while minimizing consequences. Mossad needed Bseiso dead before he could do more damage, but they needed it done quietly, in a location where investigation would be difficult, and in a manner that sent the right message to Western intelligence agencies. Build bridges to this man and we'll burn them down. The planning took months. Surveillance teams tracked Bseiso through Paris, logged his movements, identified patterns, where he ate, who he met, what route he took to his car. But surveillance alone wasn't enough. Mossad needed inside access, someone who could confirm Bseiso's schedule, who could tell them when he'd be vulnerable. The source came from an unexpected place. Adnan Yassin was a PO member, mid-level, the kind of bureaucrat who processes paperwork without ever making decisions that matter. He had access to Bseiso's calendar, knew his travel plans, and his wife was dying, cancer advanced. The treatments available in Palestinian territories were inadequate. She needed care that only Israeli hospitals could provide. Mossad offered Yassin a deal: money, access to the best oncologists in Tel Aviv, treatment that might save his wife's life, all in exchange for information about Bseiso's movements. Think about that moral calculus for a moment. Yassin wasn't ideological. He was a desperate man watching his wife die, faced with a choice between loyalty to a colleague and his wife's survival. He chose his wife. The information Yassin provided was extraordinarily detailed. Bseiso's upcoming travel schedule, his preferred hotels, his dining habits, his security arrangements, which were minimal because he believed himself no longer a target. Every piece of information was a thread, and Mossad wove them into a net. The team assembled for the operation came from Caesarea, Mossad's elite division responsible for assassinations abroad. These weren't ordinary intelligence officers. They were specialists in lethal action, years of training in surveillance, weapons handling, escape protocols. They entered France using false passports, tourist covers. Arriving separately to avoid detection, they established surveillance positions, acquired weapons, pistols with suppressors that would make the hit nearly silent, positioned getaway vehicles along multiple escape routes, and they waited. The surveillance teams tracked Bseiso for weeks, mapped his patterns until they could predict his movements with mathematical precision. They learned he preferred a specific restaurant, that he always parked in the same area, that he walked the same route from his car to the hotel entrance. The evening of June 8th was chosen with care. Bseiso would be returning from dinner alone. The street would be relatively quiet. All variables aligned. As Bseiso bent down to unlock his car door, one man moved behind him. Before he could straighten up, he was grabbed and pressed against the hood. The grip was iron firm, professional. The whole movement took less than 2 seconds. The second man stepped forward with the Beretta, raised it to Bseiso's head. The gun made a sound like a Hashkawan shot, then another, both to the head, both fatal. Bseiso's legs gave out. He slid down the side of his Mercedes. By the time his body settled on the cobblestones, the shooters were already walking away. The killers walked purposefully down the street, reached their getaway vehicle 3 blocks away, drove at normal speed. Within 2 hours, the entire operational team had left France. Different airports, different routes. By the time French police began serious investigation the next morning, the killers were already back in Israel. This is what professional intelligence services do. Not Hollywood car chases, but cold, calculated violence executed so efficiently that it's over before anyone realizes it began. Dawn broke over Paris, revealing a diplomatic catastrophe. Foreign intelligence operatives had conducted an execution on French soil without authorization, making a mockery of French sovereignty. The PLO immediately accused Mossad. Yasser Arafat stated plainly that Israel had assassinated a man who was working for peace. Israel's response followed the standard script: ridiculous accusations, baseless claims. Official spokespeople suggested alternative explanations. Maybe the Abu Nidal organization, maybe radical factions within the PLO itself. The denials were transparent to anyone in intelligence work, but transparency wasn't the point. The point was maintaining plausible deniability. Behind closed doors, reactions were more honest. The CIA was furious. They'd been working with Bseiso. French intelligence was livid and immediately restricted Mossad's operational freedom on French territory. But for Mossad's leadership, the operation succeeded perfectly. The target was eliminated, the team extracted without casualties, and the message was sent clearly: build bridges to the west if you want, but understand that we can reach you anywhere. Your diplomatic passport won't save you. The list is permanent and memory is long. France opened an investigation that would ultimately go nowhere. Witnesses provided vague descriptions. The forensic evidence pointed to professional execution, but offered no concrete leads. Within months, the investigation stalled. Within years, it was quietly shelved. The truth lived in the shadows where intelligence operations always reside. Former Mossad officers would later confirm the operation in carefully worded memoirs. Investigative journalists pieced together the story from multiple sources. But none of this constituted legal proof. And that's how modern intelligence services operate. Everyone knows, nobody can prove. But here is what most people miss about the Bseiso assassination. The operation didn't just eliminate one man. It eliminated an entire approach to Palestinian diplomacy. After Bseiso's death, other moderate Palestinian officials became more cautious about visible cooperation with Western intelligence. They understood the message. Make yourself too valuable to the West, and you become too dangerous to Israel. The chilling effect was immediate. Palestinian diplomats who had been building relationships with Western agencies pulled back. Meetings became less frequent. Information sharing decreased. The bridge that Bseiso had been constructing collapsed. And that might have been the entire point. Consider the strategic calculation from Mossad's perspective. Bseiso alive was building Palestinian legitimacy, making Western governments see Palestinians as potential partners, creating space for diplomatic solutions that might force Israeli concessions. Bseiso dead sent a different message, one that resonated through Palestinian political circles for years. The path of cooperation leads to assassination. The moderates get killed. The hardliners survive. What kind of incentive structure does that create? If working for peace gets you murdered in Paris, why not pick up a gun instead? Adnan Yassin, the source who provided the intelligence, got what he was promised. His wife received treatment at Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv. The best oncologists, the most advanced therapies available. She died anyway. 3 months after Bseiso's assassination, the cancer had progressed too far. Yassin lived with what he'd done. The knowledge that he'd betrayed a colleague, that his information had led directly to an assassination, that he'd sold intelligence for medical treatment that ultimately failed. He never spoke publicly about his role, lived quietly in Tunis, died in obscurity in 2007. But people who knew him said he was never the same, that something had broken inside him, that he carried a guilt that no absolution could erase. The operation's success validated a particular approach to counterterrorism, one that prioritizes elimination over rehabilitation, that sees threats as permanent rather than reformable, that treats enemies as unchanging rather than capable of evolution. Bseiso had evolved, from militant to diplomat, from fighter to peace builder. He represented the possibility that people can change, that former enemies can become partners. And Israel killed him for it. What does that tell you about how certain powers view the Middle East conflict? That they don't want partners. They want enemies. Because enemies justify military budgets. Enemies justify occupation. Enemies justify policies that would be indefensible if framed as anything other than existential self-defense. Bseiso threatened that narrative. He proved that Palestinians could be sophisticated diplomats, that they could provide value to Western intelligence, that they could operate within international frameworks. And he died 9 seconds from his car door in a luxury neighborhood in Paris. The Bseiso assassination became a case study taught in intelligence academies worldwide, not for its moral implications, but for its operational perfection, the patient surveillance, the precise timing, the clean execution, the successful extraction. Young intelligence officers study the operation and see professional excellence. They analyze the surveillance techniques, the compartmentalization, the escape routes. They learn how to kill efficiently without getting caught. What they don't study is whether killing Bseiso made the world safer, whether it advanced peace or entrenched conflict, whether eliminating one moderate diplomat created space for 100 extremists. Those questions don't appear on Intelligence Academy exams. If this story kept you watching, then don't just leave. Join the inner circle, subscribe to Mossad Classified, and turn future episodes into automatic intel drops. Here is the question they don't want you asking. Was Atef Bseiso killed because of what he'd done in the past, or because of what he might accomplish in the future? And if the answer is the latter, what does that tell you about who really benefits when peacemakers die and warriors thrive?